Today's video, we're going to take a look at how to identify duplicate values in our data. Now, within Excel, it's very important anytime we're doing data analysis or cleaning our data to make sure that we're considering if there's duplicate records that could impact any of our analysis. There's a few different ways that we can accomplish this, and we'll first start by taking a look at how to use the conditional formatting features in Excel. To start us off, we can ask ourselves the question, are there any duplicate product IDs within our data set? And an easy way to answer that question is to highlight our product ID column, make sure we're in the Home tab, navigate over to Conditional Formatting, highlight Cell Rules, and then choose Duplicate Values. And we can hit OK. If we wanted to change the formatting, we could play around with some options, but for this case, we'll hit OK. And we can see that the duplicate product IDs are now highlighted in red. Now, the second thing we might want to ask ourselves are these product ID and value records, are these unique? So the combination of both product ID and value. And you might be thinking, could we just use the same method that we used last time? In this case, just highlighting both of those, going to our Home tab, Conditional Formatting, highlight Cell Rules, Duplicate Values, hit OK. But here you can see that this is not giving us quite what we expected. And this is because the conditional formatting will look cell by cell to see if there's any duplicates, but isn't necessarily considering both of these as one record. So how can we get around that? We can use the concatenate function to join our product ID and value and pull down this. And now it's going to consider these each a unique record, and we can use our same conditional formatting, and a handy shortcut is Alt HL so we can hit Alt HL and hit OK. And here we can see that this is now highlighting just the duplicate records where both product ID and value are identical. So here we can see that this one and this record are the same, and then for these two records are also the same. Now, our second method we can identify duplicate values is using the COUNTIFS function. And to do that, we can start by typing in our COUNTIFS formula. And we can highlight our criteria range, which will be our data set over here. And for our criteria, we'll choose the first record in our data set. And we'll close that formula. And we can pull this down. And here we can see that as the formula comes down, it's now going to tell us how many times it finds these product IDs. So in this case, we find this record 3 times, and we can see that the COUNTIFS function caught those, and a couple other instances where we find 2 records. Now, for the duplicate record, looking at both product ID and value, we could use the same method we used before using the concatenate function. We can also use another variation of the COUNTIFS formula. So in this case, looking for this product ID array, our first product ID like we did last time. And we can also choose our value column and then choosing our first value and close that. And pull this formula down. And here we can see that we got the same outcome that we saw with our highlighting, where these 2 are duplicates here. And we also had a duplicate for this record as well. Now, another question we might ask ourselves is, what if I just want to know when the first time we saw a product ID was? And for this, we can use another version of the COUNTIFS function. Start by typing COUNTIFS. And in this case, we'll want to do something we can consider a rolling COUNTIFS function. So starting with our first record, and then having the array dynamically come down with us. So what that looks like is selecting our first column over here, and we'll put the same reference, so for A6, and then we'll be referencing this first product ID. We'll close that out. Now, one important thing with this is that we'll want to make sure that we lock this first part of our range here. So we'll hit F4 to make sure we have the $sign. So making sure that that will not change as we come down. But as we drag our formula down, this will come down with us. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. All right, so here we can click into our formula, see that everything's referencing this first A6 cell. Now, if we drag this down a few, we can see that we're still staying on A6 as our top, but now as we've dragged our formula down, the array is just going down to where we've stopped this formula versus highlighting the entire array all at once. And as we continue to drag this down, we can now look for those records we found before, where in this case, the first time we find this record, it's giving us a 1, but now the second time we find it's giving us a 2, and for the third time we find it's giving us a 3. So now we would be able to identify the first time we see something based on the 1. And we can format this a few different ways. So let's say we wanted to change this to 1s and 0s. We can use the if function. In this case, if this is greater than 1, we can have it return a 0. And if that is false, we can leave it as 1. And we can pull this formula down. In this case, now we just have 1s and 0s. So for any time we find the duplicate version of a product ID, that's just going to be returned as a 0. We could also, if we wanted to, have it actually return the word duplicate and pull this down. And there we can see that we return the text duplicate. So a few different ways that we can find duplicate values, either through conditional formatting, the COUNTIFS function. So very handy anytime you're jumping into data analysis to do a quick check of are there duplicate values and how that might impact your analysis.